but with a background structure which we do not see, and modern science so far has not understood that it exists, and this makes the wave nature of the particle. So a particle is in principle a higher dimensional entity, but not only a four-dimensional as modern science claims to be today. It is at least something which is maybe 12-dimensional, so in 4 dimensions the particle pops up, but this is only the iceberg tip of the whole story, and behind the scene an invisible structure makes the wave properties. So it means a particle is really a duality in itself. But this does not hold only for particles, but it holds also for living beings like us. We are also higher dimensional beings, but in the waking state we have reduced our cognition to such an extent due to our education from parents and school, that we lose the ability to look in higher dimensions. And this is what Maharishi wanted to bring back to the world, that people can develop by the technologies of Vedic science higher states of consciousness, which extends also the possibility to view in such dimensions and to see that we are not only the body which is sitting here on the chair, but that we also are connected to a living field in higher dimensions, which is really the origin of our life. If this field separates from the visible body, then this body is just a lump of so-called dead matter, even though on the microscopic level it still functions as a living being, but on a macroscopic level it appears to be a kind of a dead body. And the subtle matter field has separated and can look for another rebirth without any problem. So this kind of detection of the subtle matter and its characterizations yields a lot of explanations in the scientific world, for example, explanation of the quantum hysteria and other anomalies, which I could explain in a minute if you would have the time, and also in the subjective area of our own personal life. And so we can understand how higher states of consciousness can start to function. First, we know from this area of research that behind this subtle matter is another even deeper layer in the universe. So we get this origin of the subtle matter, then we get the level of the subtle matter, and then we get the visible world. We have a divided structure, so to say, which corresponds very well to the Atman Veda Vishwa structure which Maharishi presented in his Vedic science. So it fits quite well to Vedic science, and Vedic science always was a guidance for me to look how science could be extended, and it worked really quite well, I must say.
Beautiful, yes, and it reminds me especially this holistic view on the life through the approach, the science that you actually extended the edge of the modern science, which is today not entering so much into the field of consciousness, but it is inevitable. But one special characteristic is that this brings to the human life new dimension, not only on the physical level of living, because probably there will be also with the time developed some technology how to use that level of subtle matter in the practical everyday life. But most important thing, what I find now in your presentation is that it gives a new view to the life, in a sense that brings new ethics, which is actually the same like the ethics of very ancient philosophers or Vedic science and the teachers, great teachers of Vedic science like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi were speaking about. And this is that the nature of life is unity, that we see everything has life. And not only that, but even the dead matter, which we think it is dead, it's actually life, and that it has its own owner within it. So that we respect everything around us and love everything around us. This is the natural consequence of this understanding. So I think if this approach science take, and in this way, if they teach the young generations about the nature of the life, then the net result will be that they will develop naturally in their consciousness this kind of ethic which is natural, and this will bring the much better quality of life on planet Earth. And
correct. You have really very well summarized, according to my opinion, what could be a consequence. Because we see in this research that life is omnipresent. It is present at the microscopic and submicroscopic level, also macroscopic level where we are living, and even on the cosmic level. Everywhere is life, but behind this form of Veda expressed in these various levels is another background. And this is the core of Maharishi's understanding, that we today have technologies to, so to say, even bypass this subtle matter level and start to experience as a basis of Veda. We use technologies of Vedanta, which go beyond the Veda. And from this point of view, our consciousness can first expand to the basis of Veda, then we get what we say cosmic consciousness. To the basis of Veda means Atman, then we experience and can stabilize what we say cosmic consciousness. Then due to this regeneration which is embedded in this experience, we can open new visions, new possibilities to see something, to hear something, to touch something. All senses can be extended, that we can realize this subtle matter as a real existence everywhere, which then is called God consciousness or refined cosmic consciousness. And finally, we could even come to a state where our awareness is permanently embedded in the Atman to see Veda and Vishwa, that means the universe, just as vibrations of Atman in itself. And since this is unity, which you beautifully explained, I mean, this is a kind of vision for humanity, for the education system in every country of the world, which was brought by Maharishi and which could be supplemented, so to say, by this kind of research, because these levels are now proven objectively in addition. But besides this, as you mentioned, we also could use this form of subtle matter for technologies in the outside field, as you already mentioned. That means for the gaining of energy, for example. This form of matter certainly can change into heat, for example. There are a lot of experiments which show this. That means normal energy can be generated out of this form of matter without any problems of limited resources, for example, because these forms of energy are in the universe contained in much higher amounts than normal matter, so to say, and there will be no lack for recovering energy from this level. So we have various visions. This Vedic knowledge together with this research offers various new visions for individuals, societies, and also for mankind. For individuals, Maharishi already brought these principles of higher states of consciousness, which we touched a little bit in connection with this research. The second level would be the handling of collective consciousness via the Maharishi effect. And these collective fields of collective consciousness find a very beautiful and simple explanation with this research, because the individual life fields can superimpose to form these collective fields. So this is a very simple and scientifically demonstrated explanation. And besides these individual and collective developments and possibilities for development, certainly in the next decades possibilities will pop up where this form of new matter can be used in technical applications. And this is then a new vision for humanity, that we can, independent on the central production of energy with unwanted byproducts, we can produce, for example, energy free of byproducts, delocalized around the world in every household, so to say.
Yes, and I would just like to add that I had the opportunity to participate in one very big number of International World Peace Assembly, which were 3,000 participants there, and practicing Maharishi technology of yogi flying. So which creates a very strong influence of concurrence.
Yes.
And what was astonishing for me is that I was feeling like this group, it's like in one cloud, which you can feel physically when you are moving around. Mm-hmm. And especially if you go a little further from the place where the group was settled, and then you are coming back and entering that cloud. You could feel some physical presence of some very soft, very blissful quality in the atmosphere.
Yes.
In which all the participants were drawn in.
Yes.
So it was like some, actually this subtle matter on a grain scale was enlivened in that group. And
Yes.
probably then these kind of groups can spread this and connect these fields all around the world. And then all world can be in one cloud of that quality.
Of harmony.
Harmony and life.
You explained it very, very nicely, I think. And as I said, these individual fields of subtle matter can superimpose. And we should not forget this form of subtle matter is a mixture of two forms. One form of subtle matter has life-destroying properties, and the other form has life-supporting qualities. And what the individual meditation seems to do is that it prefers the absorption of the life-supporting form of energy. This is exactly what you felt when you left the group. There's a field around such a big group of meditators which spreads far to the society and transport these harmonious qualities of the life-supporting forms of subtle matter which are absorbed from every individual in the group of such a Maharishi effect group. And this is a beautiful subjective technology to enliven the internal structure of a person and superimpose it with other persons and use this as a radiator of harmony into the society. And we know from more than 50 Maharishi effect studies that this works. And this is a big hope for the world, that by big groups in every continent, these negative tendencies in modern society can be overcome, and the harmony, as you described it, can go around the world in huge fields of collective consciousness of life-supporting subtle matter fields. This would be the start of a new age, and Maharishi proclaims that this start already has happened and that it is irreversible. So it will happen more and more visible also for the individual, the stressed individual, so to say, in the living in various continents.
So it's very important that we enliven that aspect of life-supporting element of that subtle matter, which
Yes.
is, as I heard from, with the minus, but has a positive effect.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's like the anti-gravity effect. Can you tell us some more about that?
As we just said, this form of matter has two physical signs and two physical qualities which can be expressed, so to say, on the normal level of visible matter. As a subtle matter with positive sign has negative life-supporting effects, it has destructive effects. And this is also necessary for any animal and human being. So if we eat something, we must destroy something. That means we must have destroying properties in our life field for our own existence. But on the other hand, the subtle matter with negative sign has, as experiments show in detail, life-supporting properties. And so the question is always, who is dominant in the body? The life-destroying effects, then we fall sick, or the life-upholding effects, and then we are healthy and in balance. And Maharishi's technologies are the best known way to me, besides Ayurvedic food and other things which are supportive, to accumulate this form of subtle matter which has life-supporting effects but which has a negative physical sign. So if we absorb this in Vedic technologies, our body really becomes lighter and lighter and lighter. And if the intensity of this absorption becomes very strong, our body even could lift up in levitation experiences.
Yes. It reminds me like these qualities of sattva, rajas and tamas, which are described in Veda, that this subtle matter can have these qualities. And then in the Vedic teaching is, and in yoga, it is desirable to have as much as possible sattva and as less as possible rajas and tamas. They are needed for life to go on,
of course.
but the sattva should